After 2 days of debates, the fourth Amazon Summit closed in Brazil with the sign of the joint statement by developing forest countries in Belém. A Lisbon district court orders to return to Venezuela of $1.5 billion withheld in Portugal. Niger's military junta accused France of trying to destabilize the country and violating its closed airspace. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Alana Brazabal from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The fourth Amazon Summit ended Wednesday in Brazil with the participation of presidents and head of delegation from the 8 countries of the region and guests from Asia and Africa. The participants in the environmental event released a joint communiqué of the forest developing countries with 10 central axes of what should be the environmental policy to follow. The participants recognized the paramount contribution of indigenous people and local communities and reaffirmed their commitment to the preservation of forests and called for reducing deforestation and forest degradation. The statement also pointed out that climate change is already affecting tropical forests around the world and that international cooperation is the most effective way to reduce environmental damage. The Amazon bloc countries made an appeal to developing countries to exercise a greater influence in the management of resources intended for the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. President of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, in an intervention during the working meeting of the second day of the Amazonian Summit, noted that throughout the event, a very positive dialogue has materialized between the 8 nations that make up the region.
Last 4 days, the summit started actually on Saturday. And throughout the summit, we were able to establish an excellent dialogue between the 8 countries.
Esta sociedad ha demostrado una capacidad y una competencia extraordinarias de discutir los temas amazónicos. Además, quiero referirme al hecho
I would
extraordinario
also
de
like to
haber
highlight
reunido a los presidentes de Sudamérica,
the importance of the fact that we have here reunited the heads of states of the main countries who are bordering the Amazonas.
Lula advised that measures must be taken to care not only for the Amazon but also for the world among all countries.
To create a set of measures to protect not only the biggest green area in the world but the rest of the forest throughout the world. What we have accomplished here in this summit are only a few steps, but we need to keep working and we need to keep investigating and joining forces in effort to be able to solve the current crisis.
On Wednesday, in his closing remarks at the 4th meeting of the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva vowed to protect the rights of the indigenous people living in the Amazon area by all necessary means.
We need to take into account that one of the most precious areas that we have here in Brazil is where the indigenous people live, and that's why we take into account their thoughts and concerns. We are going to take all the necessary measures to protect the environment, even if that includes the military police, in order to achieve this. This would represent a great challenge, taking into account that this is not a small territory, actually it's quite big, so it would take a lot of effort from authorities and professionals. We also need, and we are working very hard on this, we are trying to expel criminal bands from the Amazonic area.
During his press conference, Brazilian Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira highlighted the relevance of the summit, which included the presence and support of important sectors of the civil society.
I would also like to add that this conference is of great importance and relevance because of the level of participation. That is why I said it has been one of the most important presidential summits within the ACTO, because there was as well an unprecedented presence from members of the civil society. Those who were here have seen that from Friday to Sunday, talks were held with the civil society, the Amazonian talks, which were very intense and very representative, very numerous, with over 400 events and series of plenaries. Today, six representatives, one from each area, presented their report from their talks to the ACTO heads of the states.
On Tuesday, in parallel to the meeting of leaders at the Amazon Summit in Brazil, there was a mobilization of the people of the earth who presented the demands to be included in the Belém Declaration. President Lula da Silva asked that the Amazon Summit be developed in 2 days, one governmental with the leaders of the region and the other with the Amazon dialogues where the communities can present their demands. Among the requests of social movements and indigenous people are the protection of territories, confronting slave labor, food security and energy, and economic transition towards a bioeconomic and strengthened by science and technology. They also seek a project of inclusion for indigenous people and support for traditional and black communities, as well as measures against environmental racism. On Tuesday in Argentina, members of indigenous communities chained themselves to the building of the Supreme Court of Justice and began a hunger strike to demand the repeal of the reform to the constitution of the province of Jujuy. The native communities member of the so-called Tercer Malón de la Paz have spent a week camping in front of the Judicial Power building located in the city of Buenos Aires. Faced with the refusal of the judges to receive them, 3 people chained themselves to the steps of the building and started a hunger strike, both of food and drink. The communities demand federal intervention in Jujuy and denounce that the reform imposed by Gobierno Geraldo Morales violates their ancestral rights over lands that the state intends to use for lithium mining.
Made this decision and we are going to stick to it. Let them kill us if they want to, or our dead bodies. They are gonna send us back to Jujuy. We will not return to Jujuy until the judge comes.
In this context, Nobel Peace Prize laureate Adolfo Flores Esquivel denounced the abuses and indifference suffered by the indigenous communities of Jujuy.
It seems we are back in the dictatorship era, when indigenous people were persecuted for the sake of the business. They want a meeting with the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court refuses to meet with community representatives. So we are mediating so that they can be heard. It is their right, otherwise this would be a democracy for some and not for all. We believe that lithium mining comes to finish the job of extermination of remaining indigenous communities in all of the Northwest region, because lithium ores will be the excuse to force our people out of their ancestral territories. Thus, the relationship of lithium with our native communities and the genocidal policy we indigenous communities are facing.
In Chile on Tuesday, the Senate approved another extension of the states of exception in the southern microzone, which includes the Araucanía and Biobío regions. The extension previously passed at the Chamber of Deputies provided for the development of military and police forces in these regions with the alleged purpose of stopping violence. The region is involved in a historical conflict between the Chilean state and the Mapuche people ever since ancestral lands were taken away from the native communities and handed over to forestry and logging companies. Although Chilean President Gabriel Boric promised to end the state of exception, this is the 29th time such an extension has been granted. Lisbon District Court orders to return to Venezuela $1.5 billion withheld in Portugal. The judgment establishes the order for the Novo Bank to return the financial results to the Venezuelan government led by Brazilian President Nicolás Maduro. The court declares the judicial appeal well-founded and accordingly orders to the Portuguese bank to reimburse money in the Venezuelan holding accounts. The measure responds to a series of demands made by the government for the Novo Bank, one of more than 50 international banks that withhold state money, to return to the appeal. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you find news in different formats, new dates, and more. Other studies coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. On Wednesday, at least 52 people were injured in a powerful explosion that occurred on the territory of the Zagorsk factory in the town of Soviet near Moscow, and local authorities said. Pyrotechnical products are manufactured at the Sergei Posel plant, and the explosion occurred in the assembly sector. According to preliminary information, the explosion was caused by non-compliance with the rules of the technological process. The blast wave caused glass shatter in factory buildings and residential venues nearby. The Russian Investigative Committee opened a criminal case for violation of the rules of the industrial safety of hazardous production facilities, which led to the fire. No fatalities among factory employees were reported. In the primary region, southeastern Russia, floods isolated at least 9 localities. Since early August, the local meteorological authorities have issued several warnings due to heavy rains in different areas. According to the Ministry of Emergency Situations, the situation could worsen with the passage of tropical cyclone Canun, which, as according to forecasts, could bring torrential rains and strong winds on August 10. Located in the southern corner of Russia, the Pramoya region borders China, North Korea, and the Sea of Japan. Dozens of flights and ferry services were suspended in South Korea on Wednesday as Tropical Storm Canun moved into the country's southern and eastern regions. According to the South Korea Weather Agency, heavy rains and winds are expected to hit the island of Jeju and the reach the mainland port of Dongyeon on Thursday. Forecasters say Tropical Storm Canun could have a devastating impact as it is expected to lash the nation with winds of 90 to 154 kilometers per hour. The storm comes weeks after the central and southern region of the country were battered by torrential rains that killed at least 41 people. China is facing the worst floods ever recorded in the country. On Wednesday, Chinese authorities reported that floods in Beijing last week alone killed 33 people and 18 others went missing. The Mendogu district is by far the most affected by the rains and overflowing rivers. There, at least 300,000 residents have been affected and damage is reported in almost 35,000 homes. Government agencies said that Beijing reported the heaviest rainfall over the last 140 years, for it got as much rain as it would get in a year. In the United States, the National Weather Service reported Tuesday that during severe thunderstorms, 2 tornadoes may landfall in parts of the states of Massachusetts. The first tornado touched down in Mattapoisett at 11:20 a.m. and was on the ground for 3 minutes. A second tornado confirmed in Barnstable started at 11:52 a.m. and lasted for about 4 minutes. The rainfall caused flooding of roads, stranded motorists, and disrupted public transportation. The heavy rainstorm left at least 2 people dead. On Wednesday, the Japanese city of Nagasaki commemorates the 78th anniversary of the atomic bombing perpetrated by the United States. The main activity was a peace ceremony in memory of the victims of the atomic bomb. During the day, a wreath and water offering were made, remembering the dead victims and the people who suffered internal and external burns during the explosion and who were desperately asking the other survivors for water to quench their thirst. In addition, as usual, a minute of silence was held at the exact time the bomb exploded, 11:02 a.m. Also, a tribute was paid to the hibakushas, a term used for the survivors of the atomic bomb, the ravages of war, and the consequences of radiation.
By appealed to the leaders of the nuclear weapon states and countries under the nuclear umbrella. Now is the time to show courage and make the decisions to free yourself from dependence on nuclear deterrence, and I call on them to move steadily forward on the path toward the abolition of nuclear weapons through dialogue, non-confrontation, on the basis of a security concept centered on humanity. I hereby appeal.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, to study special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Niger's military junta accused France of trying to destabilize the country and violating its closed airspace. The accusation was read out on state television Wednesday by the junta spokesperson Colonel Major Amadou Abradmane, who said the French forces had attacked a National Guard post, freeing people he said were terrorist prisoners.
Serious events underway in Niger as a result of the behavior of the French forces on our territory and their accomplices. Today, 9 August 2023, at around 6:30 a.m., the Niger National Guard position at Barku, 30 kilometers from the Samira gold mining site, came under attack. The number of casualties has not yet been established. However, as a reminder, through direct communication with Western partners, the behavior of the French forces was criticized for having unilaterally released captured terrorist prisoners. They have been grouped together in a valley in the village of Itili, 28 kilometers northwest of Yatakala, where a planning meeting had been held with the aim of attacking military positions in the tri-border area. The 16 liberated terrorist leaders were apprehended in 3 operations, including 2 on Niger territory on 16 June 2023 at Jessi, 38 kilometers from Bankilare, leading to the arrest of 3 terrorists. On 16 June 2023 at Makarma, leading to the arrest of 5 terrorists. On 7 July 2023 at Tina Disan, 15 kilometers west of Aurara, 45 kilometers northwest of Ayuru, in Malian territory, leading to the arrest of 9 terrorists. These acts reinforce our analysis of the situation, but beyond that, since the seizure of power by the CNSP, with a view to a new security approach, we are witnessing a veritable plan to destabilize our country. These security disorders planned by these French forces, as was the case in Mali and Burkina Faso, aim to discredit the CNSP and create a break with the people who supported in its action to create a feeling of generalized insecurity. These acts reinforce our analysis of the situation, but beyond that, since the seizure of power by the CNSP, with a view to a new security approach, we are witnessing a veritable plan to destabilize our country. These security disorders planned by these French forces, as was the case in Mali and Burkina Faso, aim to discredit the CNSP and create a break with the people who supported in its action to create a feeling of generalized insecurity.
Nigerians reacted on Wednesday to an ECOWAS plan for further sanctions in Niger following the country's military takeover.
What ECOWAS is trying to achieve is not really what it, in the sense that Africa as a whole, especially the Western region, has been under bad leadership. And I think ECOWAS never at any point in time embraced themselves to come together to help the citizens with good governance. So when people now decide to now take over government, you know, the juntas in Niger and the rest of it, the citizens of Niger, they love what is happening. So I feel that ECOWAS coming in to replace democracy back in Niger is an effort that's not going to make a whole lot.
Coup making, it's a game of life and death. You succeed, you win. You lose, you will be killed. Nobody who will get into a coup making, we want to surrender power merely at the table of negotiation. Whether we like it or not, they had their goals, they had their objectives. And let me tell you, any coup that has succeeded beyond 24 hours has come to stay. So as it is, they are speaking from the point of strength and advantage. So negotiating with them will have to be on their terms, not on the terms of international communities, world powers, ECOWAS, AU, or whatever. And that is the reality we must face.
Kenya's government and the opposition began talks on Thursday to resolve a political dispute following a series of violent protests over the high cost of living and demands for electoral reforms. The coalition represented opposition leader Raila Odinga said he wants to discuss the rising cost of living as well as an electoral reforms after Odinga lost his 5th presidential veto on Ruto, claiming he had been cheated. Ruto's opponent called off the demonstrations in April amid after agreed to dialogue about those talks broke down and protesters took to the streets again. Kenyans hope that these dialogues can address the issue of the economic crisis, taxes, and increasing prices of basic commodities such as fuel and food. On the other hand, President Ruto declared that he will not entertain talk on a power-sharing agreement.
Dialogue, peace, stability, and prosperity in whose name we gather here are not party issues. These are Kenyan issues. These are aspirations as the people of Kenya. These issues should unite and never divide us.
Because we know that our country is more important than any one of us. And we've been sent here by the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, to come and sit with our brothers to find a solution to the issues that are being brought on the table.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on the website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alana Brosawal. Thank you for watching.